Hi everyone, welcome to Off the Podium. I have James from the Villiers Quartet from the UK. Hi James, how are you doing?
Fine, fine. Thanks for asking me on.
Yeah. The first question is I was listening to some of the recordings and also I came across a little short video that you had done, and I found your story about playing the violin interesting. You mind sharing that with us?
Not at all. Remind me what I said.
Well, you had a couple of there were a couple of violins at school, and you were at first not given an opportunity because they thought you might break it, and
Yeah. Right, that one. Okay. Yeah. Well, when I grew up in England, we didn't. I mean, not everyone could have a violin because there were only 4 or 5 violins in the school.
yeah,
So we had to take a music test, and the best 4 or 5 people. It was sort of an oral test, no
Yeah.
sort of listening, hear the pitches and stuff. And I came top of the class, but they didn't give me the violin, so my mother complained. And when she asked why, they said, "Well, we thought he'd break it,"
yeah.
which is probably true, actually. But yeah, so she complained, and they gave me a violin, and then
It went from
I think she
there.
probably wishes she hadn't complained. Now.
So, how did this quartet come about? How did it start? You're one of the founders, or
Yeah. Well, this quartet's been it's sort of an amalgamation of several musical projects over the years. There's a lot of history to it. I met Nick, the cellist, when I was at college. We met 1993. We met, so that's a long time ago.
yeah,
20 odd years ago. So we had a quartet together for 4 years at college, and then I went off to America and formed another quartet, the Tigran Quartet. And the other violinist in that quartet was to become my wife, Tamaki. So when we moved back to England, we sort of got together with Nick and decided that we would put together a quartet in England, but we didn't have a violist.
yeah,
And then, funnily, I said to Nick one day, "Oh, I've met this fantastic violist," and he said, "Well, strangely so have I."
yeah,
And it was the same person. I'd met her on a course, Carmen, and he'd done a gig with her, a concert. So yeah, we all sat down, and that was 2010. We liked it, so we sort of carried it on.
You have all these quartet experiences. Any experiences playing in orchestras?
Yeah, I did a lot of that. I did some in America, Syracuse Symphony, and then we went down to North Carolina, where I was the concertmaster of Western Piedmont Symphony, and then in England, at the Opera House, BBC Symphony, English Chamber Orchestra, BBC Scottish, lots of different orchestras here.
The recordings that you've done, I think the violist of your group contacted me about possibly doing this podcast, but the recordings that you've done, some unusual names that I have never heard. And how did that come about? Just recording composers that are unknown to the general public and sometimes even musicians?
Yeah, that's right. I think quite early on we were thinking about what our sort of, what our profile would be as a quartet, and what we were what we were interested in, and what interested us as musicians. And I think we sort of felt that quartet plays Beethoven is not that, in a way, that it's great, but it's not that interesting.
Yeah.
And certainly when it came to recording, we didn't think that anybody would really be that interested in us recording the Beethoven string quartets. It's been done. So what we started to do is we started looking for what's become one of our missions: really good composers that, for whatever reason, have sort of dropped off the map, or didn't get the attention that they deserved. Didn't get the attention when they were alive.
Yeah.
Robert Steele was suggested to us by a friend, and with the support of the British Music Society, we recorded his quartets. And they went down really well, actually, and people sort of were interested.
Yeah. What are
and
some,
then
yeah. Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm just wondering what are some of the reasons why you think some of these composers who are really good and should have the opportunity to be heard in the masses don't get the opportunities? What are some of the reasons you think historically, or is it social? Is it racial? Is what are the reasons?
It's political, isn't it? It's political. And in England, that was certainly true. I mean, Robert Still, he composed in a way that was backward-looking in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. It was still very much within the sort of Vaughan Williams, a little bit a little bit of that sort of style. And the people in power, people like Hans Keller and Glock at the BBC in the third programme, wanted different types of music. He then changed his style, but that didn't make much difference. And you still see it today. I mean, if you ever watch the BBC for a long enough, the TV programs for long enough, you'll see the same people come round and round and round.
Yeah.
Or the radio. It's the same actors, the same, the same people.
Yeah.
And that's just seems to be one of those things. The other guy that we record is Peter Fricker, who was very popular in the 50s, but just went out of fashion.
Yeah.
His style of music, just sort of Schoenbergian serialist, it just went out of fashion.
Yeah.
And so very quickly he went from being very popular to having no concerts.
Yeah.
And then he moved to America and wasn't heard of again.
Yeah. What has made your quartet successful? Because it seems like even though you've had all these different quartets, you've had this particular lineup with the players and the name, the new approach for a short time. It hasn't been too long, but you've managed to be so successful. For the young musicians making quartets, trying to make a career out of this, what advice would you give them to have a successful career like you do?
I think probably, firstly, what I just said.
Yeah.
In that you need to create a unique voice for yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, the market is very small, and a lot of people are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you come in and do something else, I mean, the Arditi Quartet's a really good example, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they said no one can tell us how to play his music because no one's played it before.
Yeah.
And the first concert they did was with one person, and he was the caretaker. So I mean, and they are very successful. Do your own thing and do it really well. Careers are built on repeat bookings.
Yeah. And you've also done some Shostakovich. You've also have an interest in Russian or Soviet composers. What's the story behind that? I know Shostakovich were a lot of great string quartets, but is there anything more than just his great string quartets?
Yeah, there is. I mean, the bits that we've been interested in is specifically Tishenko.
Yeah.
And he wrote 6 good quartets. He was one of Shostakovich's apparently favourite students.
Yeah.
And certainly within Russia, he's very, very well known.
Yeah,
still. Yeah. He taught at Leningrad Conservatoire for a long time. St. Petersburg, guess now. So, yeah, we performed one of his quartets quite a lot, and there is an idea to record them.
Yeah.
Personally.
I was going to ask about the Oxford residency that you have.
Great.
What's the story behind that, and how did you get the opportunity to do this?
Well, Oxford employ a different young, in inverted commas, string quartet every 3 years.
Okay.
They used to have a long-term residency with the Allegri Quartet, but nowadays it's just 3 years. We were young in the sense that we hadn't been together very long, not young in age, obviously. So we auditioned. We auditioned, and that was a competition, and we were fortunate enough, I think, to win it.
Yeah.
And now we go down there once, twice a term, and for a week at a time, and we teach, and we give master classes, and we do a lot of compositional stuff, which is something that we've done as well.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of new pieces. We must have recorded 40 or 50 new string quartets by now.
Wow.
So we do a lot of that, and we give performances, at least 2 performances in the week. So it's sort of intensive schedule.
And you also have the Young Composers Competition with the string
Yes.
quartet.
Well, that's something that was that was our brainchild. Yeah, that's one of the first things we did as a quartet was to come up with these wacky ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was great, and it's been great. I mean, the first year we were just sort of making it up as we went along. We're going to ask people to send, and then we're going to put it online. How? Not sure. And then we're going to vote on it, and then we're going to broadcast it live. Really? Online? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we did it with my computer in a church.
Wow.
I brought my computer down with a webcam.
Wow.
We hooked it up to the Wi-Fi, and we broadcast it.
Wow.
Yes, it was all very homemade the first time.
Yeah.
But we got such a great response, and we had over 100 entries the first year.
Wow.
Which was a lot of work because you have to get through 100 compositions.
Yeah.
But we had such an amazing response to it that we carried on doing it.
Yeah. Are there pieces that you get that you're like, what was the composer thinking? How can you do this on a violin or a cello? Does that happen?
Yeah, an awful, or were they thinking? Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, a lot. I mean, but some wonderful compositions too. I guess one of the things with technology these days is it's possible to compose on Sibelius in a way that is very detached from the actual instrument.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so sometimes, quite often you really feel that.
Yeah.
That maybe they don't have much of an idea how a human works.
Yeah.
And things that are possible for a computer aren't necessarily possible, for us mere mortals. But we've had a lot of really wonderful compositions and some really original things, original ideas.
So are there composers at Oxford, and do they test things out since they have a live quartet there with you?
Yeah, absolutely. We do 2 sessions every time we go, and they bring it, and we rehearse with them beforehand as well, before we record it for them. So yeah, I mean, definitely, they're getting more confident at testing it out as well. Yeah. So that's good.
That's always a great opportunity because, as you said, with the technology, it's good and bad because you don't have these humans playing it. You put it on a computer, it plays it for you. You think it's great. You give it to an actual person, very accomplished violinist, but he's like, it's not possible. This is not possible. So I wish more schools did this. I really wish more schools had professionals working with students and helping them through this process. Unfortunately, not many schools have it.
I think you're right. But what it could also do is it can inspire students as well, because we actually do a similar sort of residency at a high school, and it's inspired so many students to write. They're 14 or 15. They're writing string quartets, and it just having the real, as you say, and it gives them such a buzz because they put it into Sibelius. They think it sounds quite cool, and then they bring it, and then it sounds really cool.
Yeah,
and so it gives them a real buzz, and I think there's nothing like.
You said
you can't replace live musicians.
Yeah, you said inspire. What inspires you, or what has inspired you throughout your career?
What's inspired me? Great string quartets, great string quartet players have inspired me. I've been lucky enough to study with some of them.
Yeah.
I mean, just the sort of art of string quartet sort of keeps me going, because it's such an amazing medium to play.
Yeah.
So much repertoire. We were having a repertoire discussion today, and you just think we're just so spoiled for choice, and we just can't decide.
Yeah.
There's so many good things to play, and it's such a unique medium of 4 players that's always interesting, and it never gets dull.
So when you get a quartet that the other 3 members love the piece or the composer, and you don't like it, does that happen? And what do you do when it's a piece or a composer that you just don't want to do, but the rest of the colleagues want to do it?
Well, you don't do it. Well, I mean, that's the thing. You can't really get around it.
Yeah.
There's a famous story about the Granary Quartet in that, because John Daly brought Smetana Quartet every single year for 2 decades, and every year Steinhardt said no. and then one year he said, "Have we ever played this before? I really like this." And he said, "John Daly said, for 20 years I've been bringing this." Unfortunately, it's like that. There have been a few occasions of that, but usually it's the other way around. There was certain compositions that came to our competition that I thought were genius, but the other guys were convinced really weren't.
It was genius for the first violin part.
Yeah, exactly. There was one piece in particular which I just thought was brilliant, but no one else agreed with me at all.
So tell me a little bit about the string quartet politics, but not in a negative way. Just how does the first and second violin relationship work in the string quartet, and how is the approach in your quartet? I've seen quartets at the college level, and to be fair, they kind of switch off to give both students an opportunity. But this is a professional quartet. How does it work for your quartet?
Well, some very famous quartets switch violinists, and the Emerson Quartet do that. Mm-hmm. The Orion Quartet do that. We don't do that. Well, I think speaking from a first violinist, what you need a very understanding and a very strong second violinist in certain ways. Yeah. And certain violinists, I think, make very good second violinists. Yeah. Certain violinists don't. What always happens in string quartets is that the first violin gets the melody on the E string. Yeah. And then the second violinist gets a melody on the D string or something like that. And so you've got to be very good in those lower registers. Yeah. And able to sound just as good in not such a great range of the violin as the first violin. It's a very much I'm married to our second violinist, so we've been playing together for many years. It's like all things in quartet. Eventually, it becomes sort of second nature. Yeah.
Is it also personality of the player?
Yeah. 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 I think Tomaki's very dynamic and really gutsy player, and that's brilliant. That's exactly what you need. Also, the second violinists, although they do most of their contact, I think, is usually with the other two players. Yeah. Often in quartets you can leave the first violinist to get on with it, mm-hmm. but the other three, in a way, the band sometimes they need to be really. That's always the thing in quartets. Those three need to be really, really joined at the hip. Mm-hmm. And really blend not blend the sound's the wrong word, but really match the sounds. Yeah. So you've mentioned some quartets, but what are some young up and coming quartets that you've heard, if any come to mind, that you suggest to our listeners or recommend? Well, define young, I guess.
Maybe out of college that maybe you've heard, or maybe you've seen them win a competition or been successful at a competition. We know the big names. What I'm asking is some of the lesser known names, maybe, even if they're not young. Sure.
I don't know actually. Yeah. I think you've stumped me on that one. I can't. Certainly not in England. Sadly, there's not a great deal of quartet playing going on here at the moment. Yeah. Mainly economic reasons, and I've been out of the America. I don't. You sort of stumped me on that one.
So economics are the main reason for the situation in England, or?
I think economics make it quite difficult. Yeah. If a string quartet can get past the age of 30, the individual member's age 30, then they're doing really well. Yeah. And some of my contemporaries in America, like the Jupiter Quartet, for instance, and the Fry Street Quartet and others, are still doing it and still doing really well. Yeah. Because they managed to get past that getting married, having kids, need to earn more money syndrome, which happens about 30. Yeah. And that's what happens in England, because you need to earn money, and you don't want to keep travelling all the time, and you don't want to be away. And all that sort of stuff. So
what's the scene like for new composers in England? You program a lot of new composers. What other organizations work with young up and coming composers the way you do?
Well, a lot of the colleges have very good things. I know the college has a very good scheme, and it partners with a media company, Audio Network, which helps composers a lot. So, I mean, there's various organisations that are set up. And as I say, I know that the colleges do an awful lot for composers in England to promote them. So I think there's quite a lot of compositional stuff for graduates here, and obviously Oxford's got a very good department, as does Cambridge too.
Yeah. And you, as I've said before, you've been very successful at promoting the quartet, and I saw that you've also done something for a TV drama on BBC.
Oh yeah, we did Lady Chatterley's Lover. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did that come about? Because I'm always interested in knowing how the musicians promote their music, and it's good for all the different musicians to learn how to do this, because we're so used to practicing all the time, getting really great at what we do in a studio. But when it comes to doing other things outside the studio, it's just not successful.
Well, in that particular genre of music, which is studio musicians recording TV or film, you need to make contact. You need to develop relationships with composers, because composers are the ones that are going to choose. Essentially, they're either going to go through an agency, or they're going to go through a fixer, or they're going to bring in their friends to do it. And Carly is a good friend of ours, and she had this project for the BBC, so she asked us to do it. Like a lot of music, it's about who you know, not what you know.
Yeah.
But as my friend Haim Abitzer always says, I mean, 50% of the time, practicing, but 50% of the time is promoting yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that takes you can wait for the phone to ring if you want, but you're going to be waiting a long time.
And it might never ring.
And it probably won't if you don't get out. But it's not. But I think also the thing these days is that it's very easy to create an illusional career, and I mean that in the best possible way, because you can have a sort of Facebook career or a Twitter career.
Yeah.
You can put all your stuff out there, and feel like you're doing well, but actually not really generating any income or any actual concerts and things. So I think an email is such an easy way to get in touch with people. You can fire off 1,000 emails and feel like you're doing something. But actually, promoters don't read emails. They don't look at Facebook. They don't care about. And it's that personal contact with people. It's that personal relationship that you build. Like I said, careers are built on repeat performances. So when you get the gig, then you have to be amazing, yes, but then you've got to be very personable, and then you've got to stand and greet all the audience as they leave and sign the CDs.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you've got to talk to the promoters afterwards, and then you've got to talk to their wives, and go for a drink or whatever. It's all these sort of social things, these sort of people skills, and that relationship building. Sorry, I've gone on a bit now, but that relationship building, which I think is the key to it, rather than necessarily being the best violinist in the world.
These are all great things, and I wish everyone could listen to this, because it's so important, and these are things that we don't realize. So many musicians, again, I see that are such great players, but they just don't know how to do any of what you said, and they don't want to do it. It seems as though. So
it's the Heifetz complex, isn't it? If I play like Heifetz, everyone will book me. But it's a different world. It's a different world. And as nowadays as musician, you've got to do everything. I mean, I this morning we were talking about me filing the next US visa for us. I mean, everything. And promotion and contacting people and making those relationships is the big part of it.
And you've also been signed to management. Are you with the management or management?
Yes, Mary Captain Management in the Netherlands.
And how does that work? Because different management companies take on different roles. If you don't mind sharing what the relationship is with.
No, not at all. Mary looks after our concerts internationally.
So
she promotes us. in England and around the world to get us concerts. Anything outside of that, we deal with ourselves.
Yeah.
So residencies are things that the recordings are things that we deal with. But so she's just in charge of those, and she's doing a very good job.
Yeah. So what's the recording process like? Because I don't know if many people know what it takes to actually record a classical music CD or a quartet. You all record together, obviously, but what does it take? Do you go back and do certain sections, or do you try just to do the whole movement at least? How does it work for your group?
Well, we've done it in a number of different ways over the years, and it sort of depends on your producer. But the producer that we work with now, who's Michael White, who's fantastic, really believes in getting the overall performance.
Uh-huh.
So we end up doing very quite large sections.
Yeah.
And you'll do a couple of performances, and you'll probably do a couple, and then go and listen to them, and you'll hear what you like, what you don't like, and you can start to talk about how you want to craft it for the recording, because it's not necessarily the same way as you would play on the stage, and you've got more options. You can do things. So then we'll do that, and then we'll probably go back and split it into big sections and start to play those, and then Michael will guide us through. Usually, James, that note's not in tune. You haven't got it in tune yet today. That sort of stuff, and make sure, and then make sure that we've got everything really.
Yeah. So, what do you do outside of music? I hear some kids in the background. What's life like outside of music?
Slightly crazy. Slightly crazy in music as well. We have 3 children here, 13, 10 and 3. So they keep me young and busy.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of gardens in the garden today. I do a lot of gardening, growing vegetables and feeding my chickens, and trying to enjoy life a little bit.
Yeah. So, any plans? What are some of the future plans for the quartet or for you? Do you do anything outside of the quartet, or is the whole energy for the quartet now?
No, I still do some other stuff. I teach, and I've been teaching online recently through a website. So that's going well, Musical Orbit, and then also. I've been doing another recording. I've started with an old friend of mine. We've started recording the Spore duos.
Okay.
Naxos, so we're going to record all of those. So that will be out soon, the first one.
Okay.
A bit of writing about violin playing. Yeah, just all sort of general that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Interest and a bit of TV and session stuff a little bit.
What's the next step for the quartet? What's next for the quartet?
Well, we've got a couple of more concerts this season. And then, but it's quietening down, and then 2 more recordings coming up. Can't tell you what they are.
Yeah.
It's a secret.
Yeah.
But it's along the same lines. Then next season, which is looking good, a tour to the US. We come out to the US in November again.
Okay. And what are the cities, or are the cities finalized, or?
Yeah, we go to Duke University.
Okay.
And there's a conference there on 20th century English quartet music, as it happens. And then down to Jacksonville, which is the home of the Delius Society now.
Okay.
In America, because Delius lived in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And then I think up to Dartmouth College after that.
Okay.
And then back home.
Okay. Well, it's been great chatting with you.
Been great talking with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and if you ever want to break any of your news with me, let me know. If you want to talk about your CDs.
Have you got a copy of the CD, the latest one?
I don't have a copy, but your violist sent me all kinds of links from YouTube, so I have plenty to listen to. But
okay, good.
But I look forward to the upcoming CDs and releases. So. Let me know if you guys want to talk about it. Maybe as a quartet, I don't know how it would be having 4 of you in one room.
I think it'd be great.
Well, thank you so much. And hopefully, if you're in the US and we're in the same city, we could even do this in person. I still haven't done one of these in person. So hopefully we could at some point do this in person.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
Thank you.